everybody. Welcome back. As you know, this is our F330 YouTube channel. This is session number 6. This is for Monday, April 13. And yes, we have a few things to take care of as usual. Let me once again welcome you. I hope everybody is sheltering well, that you found it entertaining routines, ways to pass the time now that we're housebound and socially isolated, physically separated. Anyway, yes, we're all doing the best we can. Well, let me take care of some administrative matters first. So by now you've gotten back your third short critical essays with my with the grades that I gave you, and also with my comments. And as you saw at the top, I gave you overview kinds of comments, but throughout the document I pasted in commentary that I think might be important for you, especially looking ahead to completing the final original research project. So please go through those papers and make sure that you've taken a look at all of the comments that I've added there. Speaking of the final original research project, I want to take a few minutes. Now we're going to start focusing more earnestly on those final two performances that you'll be doing. The presentation, which will now be in the form of a YouTube, not YouTube, PowerPoint, in the form of a PowerPoint presentation, and the final paper, which of course can be handed in as it would have been in any case. Let's just take a look at the final original research project. I've updated the guidelines, and I'll give this sheet out to you very soon on Canvas. So the presentation, remember I had in mind these flash visions. Everyone was going to have 5 minutes to kind of strut your stuff, bring out a highlight, some piece of your larger project that you think would be especially lively and informative for the audience. Well, you have an audience of one now. That will be me. And what I want you to do is to create a PowerPoint that you could have used. And who knows, maybe someday you'll have a chance to use it. But you could have used in this context if we were still meeting over in the classroom office building there on 3rd Street. So go ahead and prepare a PowerPoint as if you were doing. In fact, you can do a 5-minute presentation and record it and send it to me. That's another option. We'll think about it. If you have interesting ways of coming at it, you know, I'm ready to take a look at that. But remember, as in the original formulation of this, you'll have your opening statement, some background information, and then be sure to put the majority of your attention into your main finding, which will be the folklore, the genres of folklore that are at the heart of your project. Pick out something that is about expressive culture and make sure that's the centerpiece of your presentation. Let's turn to the paper now. Well, the presentation, before we leave it, that's due to me on May 1, so that'll come up in really just over a little over a couple of weeks, so that's not too far off. Now let's turn to the paper. So the paper is about 10 pages or so. That's what I'm looking for, and the format and the structure and so forth of the paper, that hasn't changed. I mean, we can still stick with those guidelines. So remember, there's an intro. I want a title. Of course, you know I like titles, and titles are important to get the handle on the project. You know, an introductory section where we have some background information and that kind of thing. And then an important, middle section, the discussion, where you bring out your folklore material and walk through it, whether you're interested in the content of it or whether you're interested in the texture, those sort of stylistic features. Some of you are working on narrative, for example, and you might be interested in the texture, how people perform a narrative and make it especially gripping, especially effective to an audience. Those are stylistic features of texture. Or you may be interested in the context, in what kinds of situations is your particular folklore genre or genres, and what kinds of situations are they being enacted or performed. So anyway, those are the kinds of things I do want to see at the center of your piece. And remember, all of the fascinating material about politics, about environmental science and so forth, those are all very pertinent and very relevant. But for this project, they are background. They set the scene, they help provide a kind of an orientation, and then the star of the show is the folklore. I've said that a few times. I think you all have the idea. So be sure and run with that way of thinking about it. And then you'll have your conclusion and the bibliography, and I specify those kinds of things. So I'll be sending around these updated guidelines, and I want you to refer to them and be guided by them as you put this work together. Your treasure hunts have started coming in. Treasure hunt number 5, very interesting. It's fascinating to me to see which of the YouTube videos you're selecting from the ones that I found. And then I've looked at several of them now that you have found, and they're all really interesting. It's possible I'll put together a sample of those and share them with you so you can see the kinds of YouTube discoveries that people were making in response to treasure hunt number 5. Let's turn our attention now to content, and we are entering week number 12, the 12th week of our semester together. We take up the last of our DIRT projects, the Diverse Environmentalism's research team, DIRT, and we've been going through these chapters from the book at IU Press. And so this is the last of that sequence, and our topic is performing interventions. And as usual, as has become traditional, I guess you could say, in our little world here, I have 5 key concepts about performing interventions that I want to share with you. I'm going to walk through these quickly now. We'll return to them on Wednesday a little bit more, and there'll be a thought piece coming your way where we can explore some of these together a little bit. But let me take them up and just give you a quick exposure to them now. So, performing interventions, key concepts. Number 1, we focus on civic action devoted to ameliorative projects in this time of ecological precarity. So, we focus on civic action devoted to ameliorative projects in this time of ecological precarity. And you see that in the 2 readings in the Brandon Barker and also in the Mark Peddlety, and we'll develop these. Second key concept, folklorists and ethnomusicologists bring to this battle a set of valuable insights and tools. So making the case here, as we've been making throughout the semester, that folklorists and anthropologists, ethnomusicologists are kind of people. We have something important to contribute. It's not that we have, the secret solution or anything like that, but we have something that we bring to the table that is valuable and can be brought together with all the other resources and approaches that people muster in these situations. So we have a toolkit that we have some insights and some tools that are useful here. Third point, folklorists and others who do participant observation are there on the ground in human communities. This is so important. You get a lot of talk in environmental studies and various kinds of approaches to ecological issues that feels very removed from the lived experience of people in their communities. And this is one of the things that we bring to the situation here, because we do this ethnography where we work with the people, we live with them, we participate with them in their societies. We really have an on-the-ground feel for what's going on, and that's something important that we bring to the table. So that's point number 3, this contribution of participant observation. The fourth point, we highlight the ineffable power of art. The ineffable power of art. That's a line I take straight out of Mark Peddlety's piece, which we'll be focusing on in the second half of this week. But the ineffable power of art. That means that it's almost hard to describe or to analyze the kind of power that art has to connect emotionally, to connect intellectually with people. And that's where we go as folklorists. We're interested in those artistic traditions, those artistic renderings of experience. artistic responses to experience. Point 4 is we highlight the ineffable power of art, especially community-based popular arts. Okay? And then the 5th point is we see our role as educators as a potentially transformative one. And this is where the activist perspective comes in. Being educators is also being an activist in some ways, and that's something we'll see in both articles that we're reading for this week. So that's just to get us started with our key concepts for performing interventions. Moving towards closure here, let me just say a few points about the Brandon Barker reading. Of course, if we were meeting in the classroom office building, we would have Brandon coming and showing some slides to us and talking about the canoe trip, which he himself has experienced, and talking about the cultural resources and so forth that are part of that. But, you know, that's not happening. Instead, though, we can still read his article. And just to bring out a few points, his article on environmental stewardship and expressive scouting in the Atchafalaya. So one thing, he takes us right away into the realm of public practice and public service. So you can feel already we're in a different sort of space than, say, the more kind of theoretical or analytical pieces that we've looked at in some cases. We're out in the world of public practice and public service. Secondly, really interesting idea that Brandon comes up with in this article, in this chapter, the idea of the trek, this canoe trip, this 5-day canoe trip, the trek as expressive culture. The trek itself is expressive culture. And he makes an interesting argument. He talks about the co-presence, the people pulling together, action, the paddling left, paddling right, the attention, how the attention is focused on different things as they move through the swamp, and the body as the locus of culture. So these are all points that help Brandon make the argument that the trek itself is a form of expressive culture. And within it, there are other forms under the umbrella of the trek. For example, the grace, which is almost like a prayer to sacred ecology that's in there, and the canoe splashing sort of playful routines that happen. And so this is where the folklorists, we look for these artistic moments, these moments of expressive activity, and we get some of that, we get a sense of that from Brandon's piece. And then finally, the other thing that is interesting about Brandon's piece, this thing he calls the purview illusion. It's almost like not being able to see the forest for the trees, which is interesting in the swamp with the cypress trees and all that. But the notion there is that we see our own little piece of the environment, and it's hard to get a sort of a sense of the larger picture where a lot of these changes and a lot of the dangers are manifesting themselves at a different level, a different scale of observation. He asked the question, is the purview illusion expressively penetrable? That's a question that really lies at the heart of his chapter there. Is the purview illusion expressively penetrable? In other words, through this canoe trip, can these young people get a broader perspective on ecological change? Okay, folks, that kind of takes us there to where we need to be for this Monday, and we get into week 12. We take up this performing interventions. Another thought piece will be coming your way, and the thought pieces, I mean, in this remote sort of communication that we're doing, the thought pieces are, you know, the best way that I have to make sure that we're all focused together on the key ideas in our readings and our discussions. So I'll be shipping out another thought piece to you very soon. I think that's what I have for today. So I'll say farewell, wish everybody well. Be sure to respond with any these thoughts that you've had, our little dialogue, our back and forth on these YouTube sessions has been, I think, useful. It's been fun for me. So keep doing that, and let me know that you're attending class by registering a thought in response to this YouTube session number 6. Okay, folks, bye for now.